I want us all to actually be very respectful of the space, of our time, of Keith's time, and of one another. I want us to really, truly think about unresolved feelings, because you may have some. You just never know how these things work out. So that's basically room for every one of us to grow. I want us to honor varying opinions in a respectful way. Speak for yourself. I or my forms, I feel, or my experience has been in doing so. Try to assume good intentions. That's the hope anyways, that we're doing that. Manage your own expectations. You know, you won't be transformed in a 20, 30, 40, 1 hour, 60-minute conversation with Keith, myself, Emily, any one of us. The transformation takes a lot of time and effort. So that's the work we all have to do. The last thing I want us to be aware of is managing the idea around blame, shame, guilt, and denial of experiences. We're not trying to do that, and I don't want that happening for anyone here in the space as well. So we'll try to manage our expectations around those particular elements with these group agreements. So if you can all agree to that, would you do me a favor and put a thumbs up with your little emojis there, please? All right. Okay, so a couple people did not. All right, there's another one, and I didn't see one person do it. So
it took me a minute to find the emoji, so they may be like me right now, searching.
I got it. So yeah. So if you did not agree to that, we'll when we find anyone violating any of those rules, we'll ask. Well, we won't ask. We'll just have you leave. We'll just go ahead and do that, because we can do that. We control it, because I want everybody to be respectful here. So with that said, I want to go ahead and share that we have a board member here in the space, which I'm very happy to see. Let's see, I think that, I don't know if Michael has a hand up, or is that a question? What's the question, Michael?
No question. No question.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't find a thumbs up.
Oh, I got you. Okay, thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. So, okay, I put you on the spot there. So I have what in front of you here that I want you all to take in for a second. I'm going to have you all read this for yourself. I'm not going to read it. I want you to all read the proclamation that was passed by the school board and adopted on the 27th of September. That was last month. And this is the proclamation that was read at our board meeting. This gave us the impetus to have this particular events, like what we did with Hispanic Heritage Month. This is how we did LGBTQ awareness, and we're going to continue to do as the year goes on. But here is the proclamation in front of you that you can take a minute to peruse and use as a jumping off point for us as we get into the conversation with Keith.
All right, we're good to go.
All right, so before I do that, before I have you speaking, Keith, thank you very much for giving me the push there to get started. I'm going to read your bio so people know who you are, and then we'll go from that point forward. I see that a few folks are also just joining us as well. I'm going to go back really quick to our ground rules while I read Keith's bio, and then we'll get started. Keith Kolkow is our community organizer and movement builder who enjoys gardening and traveling with his husband. He grew up in rural Oregon until he was 12, and in Corvallis until graduation, when he was enlisted in the Air Force. After serving, he moved back to the Valley and has been active in the community advocating for intersectionality equity. He currently serves as the City of Albany's Human Relations Commission and organizes the annual Albany Pride event. With that said, I am introducing to you Keith Kolkow, friend of mine and community activist and leader. Appreciate you, Keith, and the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Javier. I just want to start by thanking everyone for joining us today and having interest in this, and of course, thanking people who might be watching the later recording and taking time to learn some more about our history of Albany Pride. I like to start off by saying you never completely have your rights, one person, until you have all of your rights. And this was said by Marsha P. Johnson. And if you don't know who she is, I encourage you to take some time and research her. So back in November of 2016, after months of anxiety, America had elected a new president. At this point, I was working at the Community Services Consortium for the Energy Assistance Program serving Lynn, Benton, and Lincoln counties. I was feeling really good about what I was doing and spent my free time with my now husband working on our house and volunteering with the Downtown Association where I served on the board. After the election, I felt like I wasn't quite doing enough for the community, specifically the LGBTQ community. I was starting to question whether taking time to put together these events for the community in downtown was really where I should be using my energy, skills, and privilege at a time when so many people were worried about their futures and their security, and even the possibility of, like, I didn't know if I would be able to eventually be married. So I really felt like I needed to lean into that and figure out what more I could do. And I had a lot of worry around the students in our area. And I wondered how far we had really come as a society. Were children still in schools? Were they still closeted and fearful and being bullied? Had anything changed since I was in school? I had previously brought up the idea of having a Pride event in Albany before 2016, but it was really fleeting, and most of the people I had talked to reacted like I was kind of crazy and politely told me they didn't think that was a very good idea. And there are so many other events that happen in Albany that bring people together. So that was 2017, and that was the year that I decided it had to happen. And what I envisioned it would be was completely different than what actually happened. And it was one of the most overwhelming things that's ever happened to me in the community. The whole timeline is a little hazy because everything happened really quickly, and there were so many other things happening at the exact same time that coincided with it happening and made it even having a greater impact on our community and bringing more people together. The first thing I felt that I needed to do was get a proclamation from the City of Albany. Because of the meeting times for the Human Relations Commission and City Council, that process was a little complicated, but we got it figured out, and we did get a proclamation written and submitted to council. At this exact same time, there was someone else in Lynn County who was also concerned about the LGBTQ plus community. Her name is Michaela Martin. Michaela had been trying to get outdated language removed from the Lynn County Charter. A little bit of background on that. In 1992, 1993, the Oregon Citizens Alliance, a Christian activist organization, successfully passed many municipal and county ordinances throughout the state. And these were aimed to prevent special rights for homosexuals and bisexuals. Lynn County specifically read no rights to homosexuals. These ordinances were later invalidated by the state legislature and were later declared unconstitutional by the Oregon Court of Appeals. But in many communities where these ordinances passed, they remained in the community's charters, forgotten but awaiting a time to be useful again. Michaela had found out about this and began hounding our county commissioners, and was kind of put on the back burner and was told it's not a big deal, this language doesn't mean anything, doesn't carry any weight. So she did not give up. She persisted and kept hounding them and went to the legislature and got our larger government involved, and eventually they relented after 5 months, and they just unceremoniously voted to remove the language during a meeting. While Michaela was working on having that homophobic language removed from the county charter, we were looking at including some new inclusive language at the city level. The Albany Human Relations Commission was updating their charter language that would further define their mission and scope. and they were being stonewalled at that level as well. The majority of the counselors were opposed to including words diversity and equity, and the backlash from the community was very strong. There were a lot of protests at City Hall, many contentious meetings. We had people were being disrespected from city councilors that were serving in volunteer roles on the commission. It was a pretty rough time for the community. During one of those meetings, this was the meeting where the proclamation for Pride Week was going to be read. So I was there, and there were many other people there as well. That meeting turned into hours of testimony after the proclamation. Many people were sharing their experiences of racial discrimination, and it was really surreal to have the city make a proclamation acknowledging the LGBTQ experience and sharing that we would have a Pride event, and then immediately go into people sharing these really sad experiences that they had in our community, and the reaction being so dismissive of what they had experienced. With the proclamation made at that time, it was time for the rest of the community to learn that the Pride event was going to be happening. I created and posted an event and watched it travel through people's timelines on Facebook and get shared to multiple statewide organizations. As soon as I had put up the Facebook event, Michaela reached out to me and sent me an article from the May LBCC Commuter. And I was shocked and learned about the language that was removed from the county charter and all of her efforts around that. So I asked her to speak about it at the Pride event. I had also contacted our state senator, Sarah Gelser, and she agreed to speak as well. Michaela wasn't the only person who reached out to me. My Facebook Messenger had tons of messages every day from strangers from all over the state. The event had been shared all over Facebook, and the tally of attending was racking up really quickly. All of the people and organizations who reached out to me to volunteer, lend a hand, and express that they wanted to be there, grew up in Albany and wanted to come back home for this, made up a perfect cross-section of all of the people who've been fighting for LGBTQ rights since Stonewall. There were drag queen groups of kings and queens, churches, NAACP members, parents, grandmas, labor unions, motorcycle groups, nurses, local business owners. So it was getting pretty big, and I had not anticipated that. The program I had come up with was intended for maybe 50 or so people. I thought maybe that many people would show up, but at this point I had no time to revise or get more resources to support the event as it had become. Right before the event was getting ready to get started, over 1,000 people had identified themselves as going to Albany's first Pride. I'd planned on having myself, Michaela, and Senator Gelser speak at Albany City Hall Plaza, and then we'd march around 4 blocks in a loop, returning to the plaza where people could mingle and we'd play some music. The PA system I had was on loan from the Downtown Association. It was just a large speaker on wheels with a microphone. Many people ask me every year how much it costs to put on Pride, and I like to tell them it costs some of my time and about $20 in sidewalk chalk. Our Pride is not and has not been sponsored, and only happens because people from all over our community volunteer to make it happen. We've since been loaned larger sound systems, carved out time for performers to share their talents. Anyone who wants to make art or banners, like our first business owner ally, Denise Bigner, did. You can see that kind of behind me here. Anyone's welcome to do and contribute however they would like to be an ally. Now I like to invite different organizations who serve the LGBTQ community to table and share information and connect with the community. It's evolved a little bit over the years, and I hope we can continue to do it every year so people in the Mid-Valley have the opportunity to celebrate themselves and each other, connect, and possibly find resources for themselves, friends, or family. Really come to learn how important a small town Pride is. I've had numerous people tell me that this is the one day a year that they get to meet other people and be around people like them. Parents reach out to me every year about their child coming out before, after, or during Pride. Many have confided to me that they can't afford to travel to a larger city for Pride, so this means the world to them that they have a place that they can come to. A lot of people reach out privately and I connect them with others so that they can carpool, and these distances are not far. All of the human connection made during Pride highlights how important it is to show everyone in your community that you care for them and that they belong. For Pride to happen, it takes many allies and people in our community. Our first banner, that inspired our Pride shirts for this year, was designed by local business owner Denise Bigner at the Pix. Our sound is provided by local musician Billy Lanham. Allies at City Hall have helped with proclamations, permitting, people like Michaela working on preserving other people's rights, people volunteering to do road guards or assisting with setup, coordination with our local farmers market to make sure both of our events happen at the same time comfortably. And of course, all of the people who like and share the news of the event happening are all our allies as well. I want to share a little bit of my own personal history. For a long time, I was really skeptical of Pride events. I had only attended one while I lived in Denver for a short time. I thought the whole exercise was really trivial and extravagant and kind of crazy. And I didn't quite understand why it was so important, because within my own privilege, that wasn't something I felt that I needed. And keep in mind, this is what I was thinking when I didn't even have the right to get married and I served in the Air Force under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. After doing some reflection on why I carried that internalized homophobia and learning more about the origins of Pride, I now know why it is important and why it has to continue. Human rights in the United States continue to be under debate for many people in many different communities: people of color, women, LGBTQ people, indigenous people, kids and adults commit suicide or self-harm, and trans people are murdered almost every day. We continue to march and celebrate and bring joy one day a year for these reasons. Like I said, you never completely have your rights until everyone has their rights. The future at this time for Pride is pretty certain. I plan on continuing to make sure it happens. As we have in recent years, I'd like to include more intersectional voices to our program. I also believe that we're at a point where we can have more community feedback of what can be included. And I'd like to include more people, especially students, in planning and programming so they can learn valuable organizing skills. This coming year, I plan on establishing a nonprofit entity to take donations and sponsorships. Those sponsorships will help pay for increased advertising, including paid talent, paying our existing performers and speakers, and addressing increasing needs for logistics like porta potties and waste management and staging. Any funds raised over what is needed to make Pride happen will be donated back to local nonprofits that help the LGBT community. And I'd also like to partner with the Albany Public Schools Foundation to get a scholarship established. So that's kind of my rundown on Pride and what happened in my perspective. And I'm completely open to any questions anyone has.
Thank you, Keith, for that rundown memory lane, because I remember I was part of some of those conversations in City Hall, and some of that stuff was targeted towards me, and that was something else. It was kind of like interesting hearing your take on it, because having had that experience in City Hall and having people show up in such force was amazing to see. The pain and the pain really stuck with me in terms of people's experience when they were testifying in front of City Hall. Was what was stark to me, and what was powerful for me, and the impact. And like you said, the testimony was all over the board in terms of what people have experienced in their minoritized identities. So thank you for sharing that history and that recollection of the last really relatively brief and recent history, because it's not that long ago. It was only about 4 or 5 years ago that we were experiencing all this. So it was pretty amazing. So we'll open up for questions here, folks. You can send them in the chat. My Emily and myself will be able to see the questions in the chat box if you want to put them there. We'll try to get to all of them. If not, you can raise your hand and we'll have Keith answer one by one. I ask that the questions be respectful of the space, respectful of Keith, and respectful of one another. That's the primary rule that I want everybody to follow. I got 2 questions here, Ramicia, and then we'll go over to Indica after that. So Ramicia, go for it.
Keith, thank you so much for your presentation. I heard it the first time and it was even better this time because I was like, oh, I had to leave the first time. I wanted to know, is there any plans to maybe make it like a tri-city sort of a tri-town thing that incorporates Corvallis and maybe Lebanon as well?
Mhm.
And then, you know, because I know they don't have Pride celebrations, but there is obviously Pride in both of those communities. So is there any plans to kind of make it sort of a bigger event?
Yeah, so I have been in contact with Lebanon and Corvallis. As far as Corvallis, for the past, I want to say 3 years, they've done like a small event, a gathering in the park, and I've coordinated to make sure that we weren't overlapping so people could go to one or the other. And Lebanon Downtown Association has expressed interest. So I've talked to their executive director about how they can get it started and how I can lend some support. I would really like to get it set up so that we have all those prides happening on the same weekend. That way people could kind of have they can afford to, or if they want to, they can experience kind of 3 different experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ramisa, for the question. Indica, you have a question?
Yes, hey there. Thanks for all that information you shared. Could you repeat what you stated about something, we don't have our rights until everyone has our rights? I was like snapping silently behind my camera, and I just wanted to make sure I have that stated correctly.
Yes, so it is, you never completely have your rights, one person, until everyone has all of their rights.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
We have a question in the chat.
Give me a second. 1 second. Go ahead.
Asking how can people get involved?
So I plan on doing some more communication through the Facebook in the coming year around getting some committees established. I'd really like to partner with the school districts so that we can get students who are interested involved in helping planning and coming up with their own programming, because the majority of the people who come to Pride are, I can tell they're all students. They're probably all in GAPS or Lebanon School District. So I really want them to have a say in what's happening and what they want to have happen in their community, because it's really for them. But yeah, I'll be doing Facebook posts, and there's a Facebook group in there that I think you can request to join for Pride volunteers as well.
Awesome. Let's see, Krista, I see your hand is raised. Why don't you go for it?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what is the Facebook group? What's it called? How would I find it?
So it's at Albany OR Pride.
Thank you. And thank you for being here, Keith.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Excellent. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Yeah, okay, Ramicia, go for it.
What's the highest number you've had turn out at the Pride event, just like with participation, not necessarily like the volunteers or the organizers, but just people coming?
Probably the first year, and that was, I think, close to or just over 1,000 people.
Oh,
And then since then, it's fluctuated anywhere between, I'd say, 400 to 500 people.
It was pretty hot on this last one.
Yeah,
And I think that actually kept people away from that. I think you actually had to adjust the time because it was so hot that day, right, Keith?
Yeah, I pushed the program forward an hour. It usually starts at 11 and I started at 10 because it was going to be so hot that day. And I was still shocked at how many people actually came out.
Yeah, I remember that because that was the weekend that we had. I think we were going to open up cooling stations, or just after that in June. It was brutally hot those last couple of days, and walking on pavement and being on blacktop, obviously in the streets, is not the most fun thing to do in over 100-degree heat. And even at 10 in the morning, it was pretty warm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat room here. We have Indica is basically telling us we're old, Keith. She says, are there any social medias that other than Facebook, young adults don't seem to be having Facebook accounts? That's a side-handed swipe, by the way.
There is an Instagram account too. And then I was hoping if we get some students involved, I know that they're using Snapchat a lot. I did this year, I made a TikTok. I'm not sure if that made it into the community or not, but yeah, I would just like to have more people come in and establish some more routes of communication, because I know that Facebook isn't always the end all be all.
Yeah, those old schooler like you and I probably are okay with Facebook, but anything newer than that is probably tough for us to manage. So
Yeah.
thanks, Indica. That's a really good question. Yeah.
I come across the students and they're like, nope, we don't have Facebook. And I'm like, but Facebook Marketplace for free things and events. Additionally, I was curious, so I'm working on establishing initiating our GSA group here at South Albany High School. Doesn't look like we have one, so I'm working on getting connected to folks to see how we can get that established. And in terms of like planning for this bigger event, do you have ideas in which, our students are going to be learning a lot of like, what does it even mean to like be inclusive in this sense, and a lot of terms, they're going to be learning and identifying themselves. And if they're wanting to get into some leadership roles, do you have any like ideas that you would encourage for them to start off like small scale within the school community, and as they grow their confidence there to working up to, potentially working with the larger picture that's being hosted? Any ideas are welcomed. Just want to get this rolling.
Yeah. I think what I would do if I was in that position, I'd start getting the GSA group put together. And maybe if you guys still do the events before sporting events, the rallies, that might be a good time to announce it and have them explain like what they're up to. Just trying to get the word out. I know when I was in school, we had a GSA, but it was like, it wasn't widely talked about, or I think there's more opportunity for the whole school to know that it's happening, and to let people know that they're all welcome wherever they're at on their journey, and just set those ground rules like Javier did for this, that established that, you can come, we recognize everyone's on a journey, but the baseline is to recognize each other's humanity and to be respectful of each other.
Correct. Indica, could you tell us what GSA stands for those who don't know, who might not be, might need the education in terms of what the acronym stands for?
Yeah, Gay Straight Alliance.
Okay. Excellent. So for those folks who are actually, for the translation purposes, sometimes in Spanish, people don't know what the acronyms mean. So thank you for that and putting it in there. Maybe you could talk a little bit, Keith, about the importance of allyship, because I think part of your question, Indica, is finding allies in your teacher ranks and administration ranks. Keith, can you talk about the importance of allyship for folks that want to support the LGBTQ plus community? Yeah.
So at least for me, in my experience, a good ally is just someone that is willing to listen and be supportive. And especially when you're doing events and things, it's hard to pull things off by yourself. So being a good ally is just using your own skills and how you can help. And of course, I think our community needs some more allyship and more people in leadership roles coming to events like Albany Pride and talking about it. It's one thing to say, I support Albany Pride, or to say I went there, but a lot of people that hold these larger positions of power and influence, they're doing that quietly. So it helps all of us more if you are outspoken about it and saying, yeah, I'm going to Albany Pride. It's a great event that happens in our community. And, it doesn't take much more than that, but to be an ally and be supportive and to show up and let other people know that you're showing up. And yeah, I think that's it's really important, because it's, especially for minoritized groups, I know, at least in my experience, I've had people tell me like, oh, I support you, I love the work that you're doing, but it kind of stops and ends there. And then we're not seeing, people I know who have influence and can let other people know that it's okay to listen to other voices in the community that aren't in the majority. They're not giving those opportunities, and they're not letting their friends know, hey, this is what's going on, and we should all be supportive and involved.
Awesome. Ramicia just mentioned that she had a jet, her quotes jet. So she wanted to say thank you for hosting, and thank you, Keith, for doing that. So she wanted to share her appreciation. Would you mind sharing, Keith, the one story about how the PICs got involved, like in terms of like showing allyship as an example? 'Cause I thought that was a pretty powerful way in which they actually came out as a business and people individually trying to be supportive of the event and being part of the original supportive planning allyship unit.
Mm-hmm. So Denise and her husband Rod own the PICS Theater, and they were one of the first businesses downtown who actually like put a pride flag out. They had one in their display window, and this banner in this picture behind me, Denise did that and made that banner and brought it to Pride. And she was asking me, you know, what can I do to support you? And I know that she's artistic and that she loves decorating and doing that kind of thing. So I said, if you want to make a banner, make a banner. And that's what she came up with, which was really cool. It says, there is pride in Albany. Other than that, we've had other allies like Billy Lanham. He's the musician who does all of the sound for Pride. He just comes and sets it up and makes it down, and that's what he does, and he loves doing it. But I think as we continue to grow and do more media and advertising, I think more people will kind of come out of the woodwork. This past year, I did posters, and so I had some businesses say, oh yeah, I'll take a poster, and then I never saw it go up. Or I offered to put it up for them, and they were like, oh, you know, on second thought, maybe not. But I think it's just about making sure I'm trying to include the business community in this, because it is a huge economic draw. We have so many people coming downtown on a Saturday, and when our program ends around 1 o'clock, these people can all be going downtown and visiting and meeting other people and patronizing businesses. So I think people need to recognize the opportunity that is there. It's one of the largest events, I'd say the largest event that happens in Albany that does not involve alcohol downtown.
And you think about that, that's a really good point, because a lot of this stuff, I mean, it's good for that. That is a brilliant point around economics, right? If it don't make sense, I mean, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And this one actually makes dollars and makes sense. So, you know, I think that's actually kind of a really good point, that actually this helps bolster on that particular day in the morning. You know, a lot of our local establishments do see a lot of people coming through to the, you know, through First Street and Second Street businesses and what have you, right around the City Hall area.
Yeah, I had one business I brought the poster to, and I can't remember exactly what was said, but she said something like, yeah, I'll put it up and help you out. And I was like, well, this is really for you. This can help identify you as a business that's safe to go to. So this is mutual.
Yeah. Awesome. Any last questions for Keith before we wrap it up? I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to maybe ask a question if they had one on their mind. If not, I wanted to put up another slide of special acknowledgement to people, but who've helped us put this event on today. All right. Well, that was pretty informative, as Ramicia was saying. It was very informative. So this gives us a chance to acknowledge some of the folks who helped us make this event happen today. Special thanks to David Hazmin, who's actually translating right now, doing his thing in Spanish for us. We'll have that up on our webpage for people who speak Spanish and want to learn more about Pride in Español, which would be great. Patricia Martinez for her continued translation and documents. that she always has time for us to do. She always makes time for any of our events to be translated. And then Emily for her technical guruship, because I am not a technical person, very savvy person. As you know, I'm old school and I'm a digital immigrant. So that's not my strength, and I rely on the strength of people better than me when it comes to technology. And then actually, I also wanted to acknowledge the GAPS board for their passing of the proclamation that we had last month. I think it's important that we recognize and honor the fact that our board was proactive in actually acknowledging LGBTQ History Month. So I look forward to working with you, Keith, in the future about the future of Pride, and let me know if there's anything we can do as a district to be supportive of the students. Indica looks like she is on her way to doing a lot of student organizing and what have you. If there's anything we can do at the district office to help facilitate some of those things, we're available to you. And any of the folks who are here in the room, if they want to get involved or support any of the events that we have going on in the district, at the schools, I really encourage you to be vocal and be visible, as Keith was talking about allyship and partnership and collaboration. So with that said, Keith, any last words of advice or wisdom?
No, other than just thank you for having me, and make sure you're always moving with respect and giving people their dignity. Outstanding.
All right, everybody. So this was awesome. Thank you, Keith. This was really, really cool. I really am humbled by you taking the time and volunteering the time that you have. I know it's valuable. So thank you so much. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you in the next one. Any questions? Holler at any of us here in the district office, and we'll be talking.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thanks, Keith.